Ladies and gentlemen, this video has been trending for weeks, and it shows a man who seems to be a Chinese or an Asian man who is hitting men who seem to be African. And with this one, we have to wonder what crime these men have committed to warrant such a brutal and inhuman attack. And whatever the case is, we seem to be in a position to having no actual information about where this happened, what happened, or who these gentlemen are, and when this incident happened. But without a doubt, this is a sign of poor leadership in Africa, because this is not the first time I've seen such things happening, and you can even testify that these cases are increasing daily all across Africa. And these things happening seem to be happening on African soil, and committing these worst atrocities that are being committed by these gentlemen from the East. The local people have no power. But you see, most of Chinese people in particular who come to Africa are considered to be the people who are serving jail term. According to some sources, they were ex-convicts and they were sent to Africa because they're serving their time. And they're doing that because it's not in their nature to really settle, but it's in their nature to come and mine, take the raw materials, and go back to China. So many Chinese companies are mining and exporting raw materials from Africa. And this is done at the guise of making Africa great, as they say. But the question, the biggest question that I have for you is, who is quiet about all this? Of course, the African leaders. And I want to give you a case of a country called Zimbabwe, which has the largest deposit of lithium in Africa. Lithium is a lightweight metal used in cathodes of lithium-ion batteries, which powers electric vehicles. And they say lithium also is a very important raw material when it comes to rocket science and whatever they do with rocket science. And Zimbabwe happens to be the 6th largest exporter of lithium in the world. Now, the company that mines lithium in Zimbabwe is a Chinese company called Sinomine Resource Group. This company has been accused of a lot of things, including sidelining environmental and social standards in the scramble for lithium. Now, you tell me, I want you to tell me, the most important question that we have is, most of the countries that do the mining of lithium or any other mineral, I can say, they have standards that go with how you mine the lithium. And if you do not follow those guidelines, your license is revoked. So regardless of this company's $300 investment, after a series of displacements in rural areas in Zimbabwe, there's a place called Bikita in Zimbabwe, which is actually a hub of lithium. And these people have displaced families, and they have done spills, labor abuses, death, and little action is done by the authorities. So the locals and experts accuse the Zimbabwean government of failing to enforce its own laws and letting the mining practices run loose. And according to industry experts, in theory, I think, the Chinese investments come with increasingly robust set of environmental social governance, or they call them ESGs, right? Environmental social governance standards. But the practice of these are not followed on the ground. So which means these are just pieces of paper, and your favorite politicians do not care about if these things are adhered to or not, because it's all about money. Ching ching. So a lot of countries shy away from making such demands from their new partners, especially the Chinese people. So the Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is a very, very interesting country because it has been under sanctions for decades and decades, and it has the largest lithium reserves, and it sees the potential of an economic boost from just mining the critical mineral, which represents the country's fastest growing industry, with the companies from China as the largest shareholders of this investment. So Zimbabwe has been cut off from the global financiers over, obviously, the issues to do with human rights and failure to service their debts. The country was also hit by sanctions from the European Union, the UK, the US, and other various stakeholders in the world foreign markets for decades, obviously. And it has turned to China with its Look East policy. So in 2020, the president of Zimbabwe called the Chinese the all-weather friends. I can just imagine if I have an all-weather friend. Oh well, politically, that's not correct because there is nothing called an all-weather friend. It's all about interest. But many workers in the villages in this place called Bikita are not feeling very friendly towards the Sino mine or the Zimbabwean government and this whole relationship they have mining their lithium and also displacing their families. They accuse both of them to sideline the environmental and social standards for lucrative lithium projects. To round it off, I would like us to reflect on a quote by one of the most powerful men of all times, Giorgio Manna, who says, "The fate of Africa is in the hands of those who want to colonize them from within and from outside." And he ends up saying, Africa should choose its colonizer carefully. And this is a very good question because Africa has never learned to stand on its own without having a colonial master. Either we look west or we look east. Who is the best colonizer? Tell me. And it's not a secret that the British were by far the most successful and powerful colonizers of all times. But one thing they've never done in the whole centuries that they ran Africa, they never destroyed the environment. Rather, they grew more trees and they made sure that all exotic trees are planted in their yards. Yes, they were brutal. I don't want to lie. Probably more brutal than what we have seen on this video. But going back to the video, I want us to remember one thing. We are now in a world which has abandoned the idea of master and slave. But it seems like our counterparts have not moved on from that reality that sees others being lesser than others. Ladies and gentlemen, the question that we cannot justify is injustice. Injustice as it is and inequality are things that we live with and we're trying to move on from. But most people are getting powered by these African governments who do not know what they're doing. And I leave you to ponder with this question: who is the better colonizer?